Dogs, animals wandering in and out. Not the best.
Yeah, always crazy. Okay, it looks like we're starting to stream. Fingers crossed that this works. There we are on Restream. Let's double check the old YouTube. Oh, it looks like it worked. Oh my gosh. Shout out. First, I'd like to thank all the little people that helped me here, Chris. This is a victory, and then we'll turn it over to you. But for everybody that dealt with my silliness last Sunday, we got the tech squared away. Special shout out to Jordan Klein, who hopped on this morning to help me out as well. We're good. Chris, take her away.
Yeah, what's up, guys? It's another day here, NBA Live Before Lock / Strategy Show. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B today, thanks to our lovely new NBA schedule. But the good news, ladies and gentlemen, is we do have games coming up in a mere 1 hour. I was going to say 10 minutes. Thankfully, not in 10 minutes. A mere 1 hour, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 a.m. Eastern time. It'll all be going off for you in the NBA. And of course, we're going to walk you through all of the games, game by game. Not our usual Live Before Lock format. We'll be doing the strategy show format today. But of course, plugs have to come out first because there's a lot of things out there for you guys that could save you some money if you want to get an Awesemo Plus membership, maybe even win you some money on the DFS sites across the industry. If you use the promo code RESTART at awesemo.com/join, that promo code's going away in the next 2 days. So this is not like a, hey, panic. Your life isn't on fire if you don't get this membership. But I will tell you, your world will be a lot better playing DFS, playing NBA in particular. But of course, MLB, we have a ton of tools and data for that. MMA is going off today. We have a lot of shows on the channel, which we also have data for. MMA show coming up later today with Jason Floyd, Pete the Heat. I think Jason Floyd's actually doing double duty and hosting a NASCAR show with our guy Phil for NASCAR, as you might expect from me saying NASCAR show. PGA is going off. There is still going to be the showdown tournaments this weekend and some big majors coming up soon there. So really, all the data you want with this promo code RESTART is there for you. So take advantage of it at awesemo.com/join. That promo code RESTART will get you half off your first month. So it's a much better deal. And hopefully you can win it back right away. And of course, this show would not be possible without our friends over at SuperDraft. And of course, SuperDraft is the future of DFS thanks to their exclusive game mode multiplier where you say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to pure lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team with countless lineup possibilities to let you experience daily fantasy sports the way that you want. SuperDraft offers contests for NBA, MLB, PGA, NASCAR, and MMA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up at SuperDraft today using the promo code Awesemo10, and it's $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more and $20 free on your first deposit of $100 or more. So download in the App Store or play at superdraft.io because it's SuperDraft. No limits, more winning. Let's do some more winning right now, EMac. We are going to have to go game by game, as I mentioned, and it's worth hitting up top that there are some injuries that we already know, and also some more that we desperately need to know. Let me do a little retweet on our show link right now because God forbid we didn't let the people know, EMac, that it's me and you here on a Saturday morning making it happen. Let's go through. All right, injury report. News so far. We do know Will Barton is out. Jamal Murray still questionable.
Just got ruled out.
Oh, God damn it.
Hey, better now than 50 minutes from now.
There we go. So Jamal Murray out. That's going to screw up some things. Malcolm Brogdon still questionable too. Another key player that I need to know. I'll need to fix all this Jamal Murray I've got over the next hour. Gary Harris also out for Denver. There's going to be a lot of minutes to go around in that Denver backcourt. And really, those are the main injuries. It looks like Rajon Rondo's still out. Some of the other guys, Domantas Sabonis, the Pacers have not played yet in the bubble. He is out. He hurt himself in the bubble, and he's a guy who's going to be important today, or rather, the ramifications of him being out are going to be very important. And Jeremy Lamb's still out for the Pacers as well. Those were sort of the main guys that we know. Brogdon and Oladipo for the Pacers did go through shoot around today. I think Oladipo's status still up in the air. Brogdon questionable, but does seem to be trending towards playing. So fingers crossed there. Otherwise, I will have no point guards left. And let's get to this first game, which apparently changing right before our eyes. It is going to be Denver and Miami. Not the highest combined total here, but certainly some opportunity with the injuries for Denver, though they are going against the Miami squad, who may be a little more motivated based upon all the guys that they'll have playing today. I would have gotten a good amount of Jamal Murray. I would have gotten some. I'm still getting some Jimmy Butler, still getting some Bam Adebayo. That's really all it for me on the Miami side. Denver, though, I think there's a lot of value guys you can make arguments for, but let's talk about the higher price guys. And EMac, the ramifications from Jamal Murray being out, because actually I need to run a little Wowie session, but I have to assume this is going to make Monty Morris a much more popular play. Michael Porter Jr. is already gaining in some ownership there. Actually, let's talk value first. So
Sure.
EMac, values on Denver. Who do you actually trust here? Because there's a lot of moving pieces. Torrey Craig's probably going to pick up some of those backcourt minutes, doesn't do a ton, but is really cheap. He's minimum priced on DraftKings, similarly cheap elsewhere. Any of these guys going to pop for you more as I update everything for
Yeah,
us?
absolutely. You take a little time there and update that. It looks like we just got our Awesemo projections updated there, and let me just pull up the ownership projections as well. Nothing like a little adrenaline kick here to spur things on. Reminder of we saw this with hockey already at noon today, where they switched goalies, and then I can't pronounce his name, Ryan Snagel or something like that, was a late scratch, and he's usually on like the second line for the Rangers or whatever. It's like, thanks guys for letting us know 7 minutes before the puck drops. At least we got a little time here with basketball. Now let's talk two things. One, I need everybody to go to my pinned tweet. I'm going to drop the link here into YouTube chat. We have the Fred Van Vliet contest is returning. Just a buck contest must fill 100 people, top 20 are paid out, and the winner, if you have an Awesemo avatar, you'll get 1 free month of all access Awesemo Premium. Let's talk some of our discount dandies. I believe this is going to bump up Monty Morris nicely, just from a minute standpoint. Torrey Craig also going to get a big boost from a minute standpoint as of this. However, catch as catch can. Is he going to get more than 12 and a half DK points or less? Is he going to get more than half a point per minute? Might be a better way of saying it. We're not sure. He's going to have to get a couple steals. He may actually have to take shots. Heading into the break, here are his field goal attempts: 3 in 19 minutes, 0 in 5 minutes, 3 in 8 minutes, 6 in 16, 11 in 16. That was a good game. 24 fantasy points. He had 5 in 19 minutes, got 10 fantasy points, 2 in 9 minutes, 3 in 16 minutes. My whole point is not a lot of volume there. He's going to need to either A, luck into some defensive stats, which he gets about a steal every third or fourth game, and a block about every other game. So just be aware that could be a bit of a trap. I would rather take my hand at Monte Morris. At least you know he's going to take some threes. And he is no stranger to getting extra minutes here and there, and it's all about the shot attempts for him. Now, his last 9 games before the break, he did not attempt double-digit field goals. He was mostly in the 8 to 9 range, and he was playing about 22 to 25 minutes. So that's reasonable today. I'm perfectly fine with that. He's cheaper on most sites. He's not as cheap as Torrey Craig, but I'd rather take the risk on there. And then the real question becomes, is it Michael Porter Jr.? Has he been unleashed yet? No, not really. But would we like him to be unleashed? Yeah, absolutely. And just see what they've got. He's been dealing with injuries throughout his entire career, college, etc. here. So, oops, sorry, I just screwed up my filters. Let me get back to Denver here. But he's someone I'd be willing to take a chance on. We don't know what we're going to get. I would project him for 20 to 22 minutes, just guessing here. Haven't looked at our Awesemo stuff, but he would be kind of the other guy. And then for me, I really think this bumps Jokic up. But the question is, what are we going to get from him? He had COVID. He looked very svelte. Is that really going to dramatically change the way he plays? Fortunately, he's not going against any behemoths, but he'll still be going against Bam Adebayo. But he's going to have to run the offense through him even more. So, wow, here we go. Game 1, lots of moving parts, Chris.
Yeah, and I got my stuff updated. And of course, the ownership and the ownership will be coming at Awesemo, but the player projections as well as the stat lines, which you can use. That's how I pull my minutes projections for the day, because Alex knows minutes projections about as well as anybody in the business. I got all that in there, so I'm feeling a little better here, but now need to get all the Murray out manually because this is not cooperating with me. But Morris, to me, there isn't another ball handler that they have right now because of Barton also being out. Gary Harris, not really a ball handler, but that also doesn't help. So I really do think I agree, EMac, with your take that Jokic is going to gain some appeal here. He already did get an assist rate bump due to not having Barton in there in terms of his rates, and now it should be even higher for him. Not a great sample size with all these guys out of the lineup, though, without Murray, Harris, Barton. especially if you put Jokic on the court. But it does seem assist rate wise like we are going to see about a 32% assist rate for Jokic with all those guys out. Monty Morris hovering around 30%, kind of numbers you would expect, just a healthy assist number for both those guys. That there really are the two who should benefit the most directly. Paul Millsap weirdly does gain a lot in usage and court time without Jamal Murray and without Barton, I've noticed. I think Barton especially does tend to correlate better. So I was already getting some Millsap. I think I'm going to end up getting a bit more. And the Porter Jr. thing, I feel like is interesting because Porter Jr. is going to be the obvious guy. He has started in the past when Gary Harris has been out, depending upon the matchup. I think he does tend to get going a bit more, even if he doesn't start off the bench against these defenses where if they struggle with that first unit, he's going to take a lot of usage. He's been shooting at an unreal clip this year. Doesn't seem like that's changed despite his moronic stances on vaccination and various other things he's talked about recently. One guy, too, I think we need to point out real fast is Bol, who I
Oh, you
think
said
people...
the magic word and you said it twice, Chris. Bol.
He's going to pop up behind me at any minute. So Bol, he is a guy who's looked like a beast so far defensively and also shown shockingly good three-point range in these scrimmages after not being able to play too much during the early part of the previous part of the season. I don't mind having some Bol exposure. I do think right away, though, that people have to have seen these clips. We don't have a ton of ownership projected for Bol right now, have him under 1%. I think he ends up closer to 5. I mean, he's not going to end up in Michael Porter Jr. territory. But, maybe if Porter Jr. does pick up the start here at the 2 guard, maybe Bol does gain a little more appeal coming off the bench, getting some more free reign in terms of usage. They've clearly been motivated to see what they have with him. So I don't mind taking Bol as a pivot to Michael Porter Jr. in some lineups, but these guys are both minimum priced. I mean, EMac, is there, I know I'm going to do it in at least one lineup, but Porter Jr. and Bol in the same lineup, is that something? And Monty Morris. I mean, this is a lot of discounts you can make if you wanted to get to like LeBron, AD, if you want to get to the Clippers and the Pelicans game. I mean, this is where you probably should be getting your value today, right, EMac?
I I would think so, but let's just say 2 words. Chris Chioza. This stuff can go poorly, all right? We're not entirely sure where Georges Niang. Minutes, shots, still a big 0. We don't know for sure what's going to happen. This is kind of like Boban. We weren't exactly kind to Boban yesterday. I think he played 6 minutes and had like 5 points and 4 rebounds or something like that when I had looked. So who knows what's really going to happen. I would take Porter Jr. Second. Monte Morris would be first for me. I would put Bol above Torrey Craig, however. I just think there's enough. He will take shots. I don't know that Torrey Craig will take shots.
Yes. And yeah, that is definitely something to keep in mind. Torrey Craig, defensively maybe makes more sense, but they need guys who just can get a shot. So I think this does feel less like a Torrey Craig matchup. Like, sure, you'd love to have him out there to maybe keep Jimmy Butler in check, or if, Tyler Herro or Kendrick Nunn were to heat up, like, maybe those guys need somebody like Torrey Craig out there rather than a Michael Porter Jr. or, Bol's a little more defensively, at least has some upside and range. But, I think this feels to me like a Porter matchup to get his going. I think it all depends, though, where that ownership comes out. And let me see if we got an ownership update. 11 minutes ago, we got one. Does this account for Murray? I'm not sure if it accounts for Murray. Definitely bumped him down a little.
Yeah, Murray's still at 10%. So we'll have to see where that sorts itself out. So
there's also probably going to be some legacy Murray ownership, I would think, because of the timing of the slate and it being Saturday and all that.
That would not be a surprise at all. And for some people were like, hey, that people won't forget times. I can't tell you how many times I've forgotten League of Legends lineups. I forgot soccer lineups yesterday. You get distracted doing other things, and if you're playing these sports you're not always used to, sometimes this will happen. People may be caught off guard by the 1 o'clock start. That's 10 a.m. on the West Coast. If you had some fun last night, staying up late watching those overtime games, maybe you're just dragging yourself out of bed, etc. Not everybody's going to be bright and chipper like Chris is, but...
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I wake up and I put on my phoniest face. Bring the joy. I got to do it for EMac. EMac's all joy and positivity. That's what we need. EMac, this Miami side of the lineup, it's worth noting because I know that there were some reports early in the bubble that we were not going to have Bam Adebayo, not going to have Kendrick Nunn. Those guys came in late. They are available here. And Bam, a contrarian play that actually I'm pretty sure went off against Denver once this year, if I'm remembering correctly. I want to double check that. Not obviously box score watching, not always the most beneficial thing to do, but I think it's interesting to think about Bam. Like if he went off against this Denver team previously, if I'm correct. And I'm pulling it up. Fantasy Cruncher being a little low. Now, maybe I actually might have imagined that. That might have been just one of my dreams here. But I do think Bam going against a skinnier version of Jokic, that does feel like a little bit of an advantage here. Bam under 15% owned, maybe closer to 10% owned. I don't mind the idea of going to Bam today because he's one of those guys. Pascal Siakam, another one, going to be mostly overlooked in that 8K range on DraftKings. So I don't mind Bam. I don't mind Butler. But EMac, do you find either Bam, Butler, or anybody else on Miami to be a priority today?
Not a priority. I'm going to put in Butler. I'm capping him manually at 30%. I'm just going to play DK today. The Yahoo slate goes off at, I believe they're doing like a 3-game main slate, so I'm going to play a little bit over there. But the other thing I'm doing is I'm going to put in, not now that there's so much value in this game, I can't totally punt on it. So that puts some interesting things into play here for me. I'm focusing mostly on Denver. SuperDraft also is starting at 3:30. You're going to get the last 4 games. So I will be playing some over there. It just makes it a little tricky to do this and do the show. The guys I'm upping here, I'm going to go 30% Michael Porter Jr. I'm going to go 35% Monte Morris. I'm going to come in at 5% Torrey Craig, which is below the field. I said 30% for Jeremy Grant, 40% for Jokic. Those are about 50% more than what the field is. We're projecting for the field. Jimmy Butler's the one guy I am upping. I'm putting him at 30%. Now, we'll see where he comes in for me, but we currently have him at the field at 20. I'm actually going to go under on Bam. I'm just going to go with 5%. I think there's better plays out there, and I wouldn't mind getting Jokic. Bam is only center eligible on DraftKings at this point. No power forward flexibility there, so there's other centers I would like to get. And Bol, I upped him to an even 5 points per 1,000, and so 15 points, and I'm putting him at 7%. But I don't know what to get from him, but I believe more in Monte Morris and Michael Porter Jr. just because we've seen them.
Yeah. And just more of a direct need for Monte Morris too, because of what he does, that they don't have a lead ball handler. There's always guys who can score, who can get hot in a lineup. And, I think Monte Morris has a skill set that's going to be harder to duplicate. That said, I expect his ownership to take a big jump when we do get this ownership update. And I think, there's one ramification here, which we're going to talk about in this next game. So maybe I'll just use this transition. Jordan Clarkson, his ownership has come up, I think, because of our algorithms there that the guys behind the scenes use to figure out, they get better as we get closer to lock because of just some improvements and changes around the fringes that happen. Clarkson, I think, was going to get very highly chalky because his price went down after he played 30 plus minutes, had crazy usage in that last game. This matchup against Oklahoma City, not quite the same as the one versus New Orleans, where that one plays a little more directly into Clarkson's wheelhouse, the pace up, him just finding room to get to the rim. And honestly, you could argue he should have had a better day than he had because he missed a lot of easy bunnies at the rim. But Clarkson, I feel like, could get a little forgotten now because of this, rush to get Porter, this rush to get Monte Morris in. And I think Clarkson, to me, I do like Mitchell. I do like Conley a little, and Gobert, never really an issue with him at center. As our boy Josh Engelman has said many times, he just gives you steady production night in and night out, and you can rely on him at center. I still think Clarkson is a guy that I like the most on this Jazz team, EMac. But how do you feel about the Jazz generally going against Oklahoma City today?
We want to remember that Oklahoma City in general, was actually pretty good with their guard defense, with their essentially running a 3-guard lineup most of the time. So we want to temper expectations just a little bit. But I see in chat they're asking me, would you go with Richardson as a pivot off of Clarkson? My answer is no. I just think that Utah needs shooters. And we saw on Thursday night that Clarkson's not going to be afraid. That's probably a top 10 percentile outcome that we got from him. But I think he'll get minutes. We know he can play alongside their other guards. And we saw they don't really trust Emmanuel, or Emmanuel Mudiay is what he is. So I think if there's minutes, second unit minutes, whatever it is, for me, Clarkson's still very much in play. And I don't think that that's chasing the performance. You just need to realize he's one of those guys that has, he could get 17 fantasy points or he could get 40, and you can't be surprised if it's the perfect matchup and he just gets 17 fantasy points. There is no floor with him. But I do think there's a decent ceiling. Conley did he luck into a game? But goodness, that was the Conley I was expecting at the beginning of the season. Remember how bad he was for months now, in various injuries and all of that, but I'm okay going back to Mike Conley, and that's something I didn't think I would say during this quarantine bubble games.
Yeah, I mean, he was playing well before the season stopped, like, or he's starting to turn it around a little bit, but I think it's more just out of necessity. Like, he felt like he was due for positive regression on his shooting pretty much all year. I mean, you look at his numbers on the year, he's still shooting just under 41%. That was a little bit lower before that last game because he actually shot, even though he didn't shoot terribly well, he actually did bump his numbers up a little there. Um, I like Conley just because they need guys. I mean, the loss of Bojan Bogdanovic is so big for them because he had a gigantic usage rate on the year. And I think, there are some logical leaps you can make, like maybe George Niang. I know there are some people who talked about him, his ability to shoot threes. Maybe he picks up that slack, but Bojan shot 7 threes a game, had a 25% usage rate, almost 26. There's room for really, I think, to go again, to go to Mitchell, to go to Conley, to go to Clarkson. At least two out of those three guys, I think, will have a day here. Oklahoma City is certainly not as fast paced of a team as New Orleans, but defensively, they're not really doing much that's that great. 107 defensive rating on the year. They're perfectly competent. They do play a little slower, so there will be some less possessions to go around. But I still really, Mitchell to me feels underpriced. Conley feels underpriced. Clarkson feels underpriced. Gobert, probably the closest out of all of them. And he and Adams do tend to go at each other pretty hard, like two Rams just butting horns against each other. But for me, Mitchell is still a guy I think is a tent pole play of the day. Clarkson as well, I think one of the premier value plays. And Conley, still kind of sneaky there because people will remember mostly the bad year. So these guys all have some appeal. EMac, anybody else for Utah here jump out? Royce O'Neal, Joe Ingles. O'Neal, we did see have a pretty good day, a little more aggressive with his shot. Still never going to be even maybe a double-digit usage rate guy. He's got some PJ Tucker in him, but he does get some steals, does get some boards, adds a little bit of assist. Same thing with Ingles, more on the assist side, more on the scoring side. But do these guys have any value to you?
Not really for Royce O'Neal. Ingles, yes, just because he is, kind of along with Jordan Clarkson, they're sort of backup facilitators because they could both be on the court and they won't have to put in Moutier. They can let Mitchell and Conley rest, whatever. So those guys I think are good enough there, and we know that they're utilized in the rotation and they do have their roles. Those are the guys I like. Not a fan of Gobert or Steven Adams today. If you have to play a center on some of the sites, they sort of come into play. But on DraftKings, I don't think I'll get much of either. If I was going with either of them, I would go with Steven Adams. I just think it's a tougher matchup here for Gobert against Adams. It's a shockingly better matchup than it was on Thursday night, but he's going to have to work for it. Now it's another center with skill set similar to himself, so he's not going to be chasing as much. So that, and he won't get run off the court, we would like to think. But I just don't. I'm not as fired up for Gobert because we have so many other choices today. The 2-game slate, he was more of a necessity, especially with the way the positions shook out on a lot of the sites. But I don't really want to go with him today. So for me, it's the guards and wings for Utah, and I feel comfortable going to him. On the other side, I think it's Chris Paul. It's a little bit of Schroeder, and it's a little bit of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I don't really love taking people against Utah just because of the pace, the team defensive concept, etc. And with other options today, I still would rather ride with the chalky cheap guys than go really to the Oklahoma City side. That's probably what the average gamer is going to say as well. So then now you've got ownership in play and leverage and all of that. But I don't feel as comfortable with the OKC side of this in this particular matchup.
Yeah, I think I have a little more Adams, and I also would throw in Gallo as a guy where I think for cash games, he's going to have enough ownership on him, and he really just never disappoints. The issue is that for tournaments, I don't think he's going to meaningfully spike that upside. I know I was really close to Gallo on the handful of FanDuel lineups I put in. Again, DK usually my main side, along with sprinklings of SuperDraft, but been trying to play a little more FanDuel because of their tournaments and frankly a good amount of overlay over there so far as they try to get a little more aggressive with their prize pools. But Gallo, I don't mind him on FanDuel. I don't mind him. Maybe a little more on DraftKings. I feel like he's just kind of, it's hard to imagine him having that monster day. But if you need a guy who's going to get you 25 to 35 fantasy points in that range and not a single point more and probably not a single point less, I think that's the guy you go to. I'm not going to kill you. If you have to take some risks in some other spots, I think that's where you go to Gallo. So I wouldn't rule him out. And same thing with Adams. He did have a pretty nice day last time out versus the Jazz and Rudy Gobert. I think Adams has some potential at center. I do like pairing him with Miles Turner to save some money at the position. But I think it's really not, any of these guys don't feel like a must have. That said, I do think having sprinklings of these guys makes sense because none of them are going to be chalky. They're at prices that aren't terribly appealing, like Shea, Chris Paul. We have all these guys being at about 5x value, so they're not going to pop up a ton in optimizers. But I do think getting there makes your lineup a little bit less owned, still gives you some upside. And the Jazz, we kind of saw it, defensively. The defenses seem like they've been the thing to suffer the most so far. As we saw yesterday, I think the highest, 5 games cracking 120 points was per side was like the most that's ever happened in the NBA. I think I saw an alert in my haze last night from ESPN. Yeah, I think that there are some things here that are worth noting, that the Jazz maybe not as great defensively in the spot. Maybe you do see Shea or Chris Paul or even Dennis Schroeder off the bench come through at under 10% ownership. These guys can spike an upside. I don't love the price on Schroeder, but more of a thought exercise kind of thing there.
Yeah, and that's fair. And they're teasing me in chat. These aren't your grandpops, Utah Jazz. Yes, this game is not in whatever they play, the Delta Center, the Salt Palace, whatever it is these days. But this is not at altitude, etc. I just think they have. It's just harder for me to go with them. That could be my own bias, but we don't have much to go on yet with just two practice, scrimmage type games in the mix here, and one from Utah. So we'll have to see what happens with OKC. I feel comfortable just going the Yep. But that's, you got to live with these decisions. I felt comfortable going with Chris Chiozza until I didn't yesterday. So there you go.
The joys of DFS, especially heightened right now in this NBA bubble situation. But at least we knew Jamal Murray had come out at 9:45. I might have just flipped this table and left the stream for the day. Just kind of focus on some other things. So you got to take the bright spots where you can find them. Guys, hit the like button too. We appreciate it a bunch. And thank you guys for tuning in a big way. I know it's Saturday morning here on the West Coast, early Saturday on the East Coast. There are things you could be doing even in quarantine times. So we appreciate you all very much for tuning in, but we appreciate you even more if you hit that like button for us so we can help be spotted by some more people. And as the boss man, Alex Baker in chat, even he's doing some live before lock shows for us now, foregoing perhaps some of his own earnings for, actually, no, he's had monster days while doing live before lock, which makes me feel even worse about myself. But Alex is in chat, does point out the ownership has been updated, so make sure you take advantage of that promo code restart at awesemo.com/join. That gives you half off your first month for all of our data across all the sports, and of course that does include NBA. And see if there are any big risers. Nikola Jokic actually kind of chalky on DraftKings now, top 3 projected ownership guy. Kind of interesting there. Monty Morris, of course, taking a move upwards, though, projected for slightly less ownership than Michael Porter Jr. Both guys, though, very close in the same range. As we mentioned, I think EMac and I agreed. I think you agreed that Morris, the guy we'd prefer over Porter, right?
Yes, absolutely on that one. So before we dive into the next one, I just need 19 more people here in our Fred Man Elite contest. I'm the only one that has to play him, but it's got to fill to run here. It's just $1. Top 20 are paid, and there are 100 people in this. So again, this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm the only one who has to play him, but if you want to jump in there for a little fun to get a free month of Awesemo premium content, we're going to say top 3 people. If you have an Awesemo avatar, you get a free month. I'm adjusting. I'm adjusting the prize a little. Throw a little carrot out there.
All right, let's keep going through the slate here because we do have this, actually, some could say might be the marquee game of the day. You have New Orleans heading into the Clippers, a game with an over 230-point implied total. Who knows, given what we've seen so far, again, yesterday in particular, maybe this one really gets smashed. I wouldn't hate taking the over here, even though that usually isn't the move to make with a high total. But still, New Orleans here, we know the deal with them. Zion, minutes limited, but probably, I would think, gets closer to 20 minutes today than the 15-ish or whatever he had last time. Still going to be playing in short bursts. David Griffin, the GM, said yesterday he's not expected to have his full minutes load, still going to be limited. So probably wise to stay away from Zion, other than maybe a sprinkling in GPPs in the hopes that he does get more minutes there. Clippers side, though, EMac, this is the one I find to be more important. I cannot get away from Paul George and Kawhi Leonard in lineups I'm crunching today. Maybe some risk the Clippers blow them off the floor, though I thought New Orleans really played pretty fiery that last game, even though they didn't come out with the win. These guys clearly do want to make the playoffs. They threw everything they had at that game. I imagine it's the same here. Not the case for the Clippers. They don't need to have that win, but it's worth noting Paul George, Kawhi Leonard both got pretty big minutes in the opener, so you could expect them to get decent run. Reggie Jackson picked up a lot of run in that game as well, with Patrick Beverley being questionable. Did get ruled in, but came off the bench. So, maybe that changes a little bit for Reggie today. Reggie kind of played the Lou Williams heater role for limited stretches that Kawhi and Paul George were off the floor. floor. So I could see taking some tournament stabs at Reggie, though. I don't necessarily expect him to spike a big upside. I do think his price offers him a little bit of room to hit that target score you need in tournaments. Marcus Morris, a non-factor for me, but EMac, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard, monster plays today, I think. The ownership on them also going to be pretty high. So are you riding with Paul George and Leonard, or do you have a preference between the two?
I prefer Paul George. I did the cheat sheets today, and I did not put Kawhi Leonard on my short list. I think he's fine as an option. I just think George is a little bit cheaper and a little bit better of a choice. We did see, disappointing. He had 50 DraftKings points. Leonard did in 33 minutes, 7 of 16 from the field, 11 of 13 from the line. That was the most, let's see, foul shots he has taken since December. And that looks like it was the third most on the whole season. So we may not get that again. So if you back off 5 or 6 of those and back off 5 or 6 fantasy points, now we're looking at, oh, I'm sorry, he got 45 fantasy points. I think he's decent for 40, but I just don't know the upside with him unless he's hitting his shots, because I don't know that he'll need the shot volume there. So the line he got is about the line I would expect as his, a top 20% outcome for him in this matchup. So not as excited there. I think there are better point per dollar plays than that. He's not horrible, and I'm not crossing him. I wouldn't cross him out, but he's not a priority for me. Whereas I would say Paul George is a priority.
Yeah, I agree. The price on Paul George a little better, and honestly, I still do have some risk about them maybe ramping down Kawhi's minutes in games where you don't need it. That game, the opener against the Lakers, that's one where he plays 33 minutes. You're not surprised by that, given that it's a national TV game. He's coming in about as fresh as you can get, and it's worth noting too, the Clippers don't play again until Tuesday, so he should theoretically have some time to decompress. But it scares me a little in a pace-up spot that maybe you see some more rest intervals for Kawhi. And I don't think I agree with you, EMac. I think stylistically, Paul George, this fits into his game really well. I think that he is a guy who I don't see any reason why he would get less minutes, whereas Kawhi, if things ebb a certain way, maybe you just want to save him a little bit less, or he kind of does his in-game rest thing. So I agree. I'd favor Paul George just because of the discount, but definitely going to have healthy swaths of both guys right in line with the field. Anybody else on the Clipper side jump out to you? EMac Zubac, had some foul trouble last game, kind of lost his minutes. Patrick Patterson ended up stealing a bunch of run there, but you would think that Zubac could find decent opportunity here against the Pelicans in a pace-up spot. Maybe he's one way to get away from the Paul George and Kawhi Leonard chalk a little bit if he just takes a little more usage away in that beginning part, get some putbacks or something like that. Is any of these guys on the Clippers rating for you in a meaningful way besides the big two?
Not oh yeah, JaMychal Green, sorry.
Okay.
I actually liked JaMychal Green on Thursday. He ended up being in that closing lineup and worked out very nicely for him. I suspect we'll see something similar today. So yes to JaMychal Green, but I'm tepid on everybody else besides Paul George. Even without the guys that they have, we just kind of saw a hodgepodge there. I don't know what to expect from Patrick Beverley. I don't really know what to expect from Reggie Jackson. I'm okay still going with Jackson just for the lower price point. Not as excited by Pat Beverley. Don't hate it. Rather go with the Denver guys personally. But if you're playing on games that are starting after 1 o'clock, they kind of replace the Denver cheap guys, if that makes any sense. Just once those guys are lopped out of the player pool. But for me, in this game, it's Paul George, definitely. It's JaMychal Green, definitely. I will not have. I don't think I'll have any Zion Williams. I'm okay with Brandon Ingram. I'm okay with Drew Holiday. I was a little disappointed in Lonzo Ball, but he's going to have solid games throughout this. I think it helps him a little. Let me rephrase that. I don't think it helps or hurts him with Zion's minutes just because he's more of a distributor from this, and I think it changes spacing with and without Zion, so I don't think he's as impacted by it. We did see him have some better games with Zion, but this 4-minute burst thing or just limited minutes or whatever, it's hard to adjust, figure out rotations, who's going to be in with him, who's not, etc. And then I'm blanking on the who's the other cheap guard? Eton Moore.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, he wouldn't be a consideration.
I don't know that I want to do that.
You're probably not enough run for each one more to be there, but I don't mind sprinklings of Lonzo. I don't mind sprinklings of Drew Holiday. Brandon Ingram, we saw he really was coming out like a house of fire in that game against Utah, hitting all sorts of shots. And then he does the thing he always does where he kind of slows down as Zion gets a little more minutes. And that's, Zion's going to be taking more minutes off the table today. I don't mind the price on Ingram. I don't mind getting there, with the field. He's projected for about 15% ownership. That feels about right. Also worth noting, the chat pointing out here, officially, announcement is out. Michael Porter Jr. is starting. Got to imagine that ownership's going to sail for him. Also, Monty Morris officially starting, though that one not as much of a question mark. I have to say too, I think Bull, I think this does make him a little more interesting potentially off the bench now that we know Porter's not going to be, potentially clogging that up, even though, that's the likely outcome. Still does seem like that was a potential option that he could have put Porter off the bench, maybe started Jeremy Grant. I think Jeremy Grant actually gets a little sneakier here. I think Bull and Jeremy Grant both get a little sneakier here. Jeremy Grant, we've seen be hyper productive in short bursts. He is a guy who can also add some defensive stats, but definitely not afraid to take his own shot. And, Miami, a rugged matchup too. I don't mind taking some stabs at Jeremy Grant now that we know that Porter's starting. And you have to assume Porter Jr.'s ownership is going to go even higher now that we know he'll be in that starting five.
Yeah, some people were asking for groupings. I'd probably play two of the three of Porter, Grant, and Millsap. I think there's a little bit of overlapping stuff there, but I'd still be. It's nice that. Yeah, exactly what you said with Grant coming off the bench. It helps Porter because we know he's going to get minutes, or we can infer that we would like to think he's going to get minutes. I don't think. What do you think his minutes will be? 26?
I think 26. Maybe he gets just under 30. I think they
Right.
they have so little bodies. I could see him
Yeah, but I feel Grant gets about the same off the bench, so I don't think it really hurts Grant. Now you're a question of where do you get the usage, the efficiency, how much are they going to play together? What's Millsap going to do in this mix? Does it end up being point Jokic? Are we going to see Jokic and Plumlee out there? Now we have a myriad of other things going on there, but yeah, I'm still good with Porter.
Yeah, I think that's certainly going to be chalky. So keep that in mind. If you want to get different from a lineup right away, just not playing MPJ today might be the move, despite the fact that that's very much one that can kill you if he does spike that upside. Let's keep going through here.
I was going to say, I still think I'm good with 30 to 35%. If the field ends up getting higher, I'm totally fine with that. If the field's lower, all right, I'm good with it. That's about where my number's going to be. I'm not going to try to beat the field. I'm just going with my number.
Yep. Okay, that seems fair. Let's keep going through here. We got two more games, and we'll hopefully have a little time for questions at the end. Got Philadelphia heading into a game against Indiana. Ben Simmons, I think we might have had a projection issue earlier in the day that I saw, though I honestly
might have just that's
imagine that. Yeah, it was fixed. So just in case you did pull your projections early, don't worry about that. Make sure you have the most recent one in there. Philadelphia here, though, not grading out terribly well. Ben Simmons, a lot of the guys doing the NBA preview shows, I know Lofty's been following it closely. Ben Simmons moving to the 4 has performed well with that role so far, shooting a little more threes, which kind of baffling to see, but he was actually chucking up threes in the one scrimmage I watched, and it's been something that he's talked about a lot, but does seem to actually be taking to heart. If guys are giving him room, he's going to take it. And also because he's taken those shots, it's kind of opened up a little more of an assist lane. He's losing some because of not being the primary ball handler every single time, a little more with Shake Milton bringing the ball up and kind of getting that first crack. I'm sure we'll see some Josh Richardson as well do that if Simmons is playing the 4. But I think Simmons, I think Embiid, especially Embiid, given the fact we don't have Domantas Sabonis on the other side, these guys feel like potential tournament winners to me tonight. I'm not going to go heavy on them, especially Embiid. He's still got 20% ownership on him. And I do think that Miles Turner on the other side is a better value just because he has to play minutes here. Kogo Badatsi also a little bit banged up behind him, may not even play today. He was questionable the last that I saw. So I do like Embiid. I like the matchup for him, but I also like Turner on the other side as a value play. But EMac, let's stick to the Sixers side. Simmons, Embiid, Harris. I don't see getting Harris, but Simmons and Embiid, I really do think are guys you should have some exposure to today because it wouldn't shock me if they spike an upside. Neither at a crazy price either, though Embiid conditioning with him, I think could be a concern. But
yeah,
what do you think, EMac?
Embiid is the wild card here. I'd rather go Jokic, but God, we've seen Embiid just put out some amazing games. You're absolutely right with the way the mix is going here. That this with him against Miles Turner, 20 rebounds is in play, but so is 20 minutes. Mm. That's what would you say? 10 percentile outcome that he plays 20 minutes, maybe 1 in 3 that Embiid's minutes played begins with a 2 today, meaning he doesn't get over
Yeah.
30.
He's definitely, I mean, I think he's not clearing 32. I would
Yeah.
say like that's like the ceiling for him minutes wise. But yeah, I think 30 might be lofty. Like you might see an easy 28, but his 28 that, could be 2 fantasy points per minute going against Miles Turner, who's, not the best interior defender in the world. Not that Sabonis is either, but yeah, I don't know. Let's talk about the Pacers side, EMac, because
Malcolm Brogdon, what do we do?
So I am playing Malcolm Brogdon and praying that he will be in today. He did go through shoot around, as I mentioned up top. Oladipo did also go through shoot around, but his status is very much up in the air. I think he's still considering all his options if he wants to play. We also know what he did before the season, or rather before the stoppage of the season. Didn't look the best to start. Shot under 40%, 39% shooting from the floor, shooting 30% from three. Was terrible despite soaking up a ton of usage and also killing, quite frankly, Malcolm Brogdon's value a lot of days. I would love Brogdon even more if Oladipo's out, but I still am going to be I'm going to be about 50% Brogdon, and we have him at 25%. I just like the spot. I like the price for him. I like not having Sabonis. Sabonis, a really good assist man, and I think that's something people may sleep on with him. Brogdon just needs the opportunity. He needs the room to operate. He'll also get some extra boards because of Sabonis. And frankly, Turner doesn't play close enough to the glass, really. So I think he's going to also have some more opportunities. Same thing for TJ Warren, too, who does get an uptick in usage and rebounding. I like the skeleton Pacers crew. I think they can hang in with Philadelphia. Philadelphia has been a tough defensive team, but as we've seen, defense not all the way there for these teams right now for whatever reasons. So I really do like all these guys, but headlined by Brogdon and Turner, and then not too far behind TJ Warren. But EMac, Indiana here, what are you doing? Are you taking the Brogdon high risk probability going into a late game here? So you're not going to have many swap options either.
Yeah, I definitely is going to, or I definitely am going to go to Brogdon. I've got him in my utility spot on DK just for additional flexibility there. If he ends up playing, I can always flip him to shooting guard or guard because I've got some people. I've got Van Vliet in that late game in the Van Vliet contest. That's what I was just building out now. So for me, I think the person I was sleeping on until I just heard you actually say it is TJ Warren. And I think he's someone that could get lost in the shuffle here. And I think that's someone I want to make sure I have in my lineups as I turn my attention over to those as I'm wrapping up my tiers lineups. But Brogdon is in an amazing spot. He's tier 6. The other guys he's competing with are Gallinari, Warren, Turner, and then some Toronto, afterthoughts in Norman Powell and OG Anunoby. So I think you can put Brogdon in there comfortably because you can always pivot to Turner or Warren in the same game. So I just want to call that out that you have built-in flexibility there on that one. So you've got your outs. But I'm the more you've talked about Sabonis being out, the more I don't think Oladipo's going to play. The more I kind of like these. You said it right, the skeleton crew. I think I was overlooking that fact earlier. Because Indiana, you're like, I'm never going to play him. Okay, this is not even close to what they were in the season, which was not even close to what they were last year, because the Oladipo and Brogdon, everybody's always hurt, and we're playing Aaron Holiday and Justin Holiday and whoever that other guard is. It's just, yeah. I'd stay away from those guys.
Did you leave out TJ McConnell?
I did leave out
How
TJ
dare
McConnell.
You?
I know. He's my favorite of all of them. Just throwing that out there. He always is my default amongst those three, but I would rather stick with Brogdon, Turner, and Warren as my main guys.
Yeah, I think that seems like a logical approach. And yeah, I mean, again, it's just these absences are going to be the key things. We saw it yesterday with Brooklyn. They didn't come through in a meaningful way, but ton of usage for LeVert, a lot of opportunity for Jared Allen, even guys like Timothy Luwawu, Cabro. EMac mentioned Chris Chioza not coming through, but Joe Harris also picked up a lot. It's just when you have these absences, somebody's got to fill in something. And it's going to be tougher for them against Philadelphia, though I do think having Brogdon out there, I just really believe in Brogdon. And it's hard to fully erase the memories of early season Brogdon where EMac, I'm sure you remember, he was priced around 8K for stretches because he was going nuts and putting up almost triple doubles, if not actual triple doubles. You could see that happen more because there's just going to be less bodies to take that off the table for him.
Absolutely.
Let's get to our last game here, and then we'll have some time for questions. Lakers in Toronto. Honestly, a potential NBA Finals rematch. I know we saw Milwaukee have a nice performance yesterday. Certainly a team that's the favorite, but Toronto, they were there last year. They have the guns. They have the guys here who can do some damage and can make this a competitive game. I still would tend to think this one plays on the slower side and the more defensively minded side. I don't expect this one to be Dallas Houston yesterday, which we talked about. We knew from the morning, and EMac and I talked about it on our live before lock show for the two gamer at night. That game was one that just there was really very few ways it wasn't going to go high scoring. This one, I think there'll certainly be some scoring, but these are two defensively sound teams, both teams under 103 or around a 103 defensive rating, which is on the upper echelon of the league. And we know the story here. I think these are guys that I don't love quite as much on a projection basis, but I think if you want to get guys at low ownership who are probably going to be in a very competitive game, going to AD and LeBron instead of taking the discount and going to Kawhi, going to Pascal Siakam, who I mentioned earlier, at a kind of an awkward price point, who's going to be under 20% owned. EMAC's boy, Fred VanVleet, also popping up some with Awesemo's projections. He's been great on the year, even though he and Kyle Lowry do tend to take a little bit away from each other. That said, EMAC, I really only have the stars here. I only have AD. I only have LeBron. I only have Siakam. I didn't get any Kyle Lowry. I got a little bit of VanVleet. What are you getting out of this game, if anything?
Little Van Vliet, little Siakam, a little bit of Lowry, and it stops there. I'll have to look and see because I don't hate Paolo or OG Anobi, but at that point, I'd rather go with just some other extreme scrubs, in my opinion, just because I don't know what we're going to get from them. Sergey, ugh, why did I do that? Ibaka is interesting, particularly over there on SuperDraft, because I believe he is, if I remember correctly, center only over there, and you have to play a center, so he's kind of in that middle point, and they start with the later games. They're not including this first one, so those are kind of where I'm going with that. Not overly excited by any of those. I don't expect to see more than 20% of any one of them on my teams. I'd be shocked if I have more than two, like extremely shocked more than two on any team. And I'm not really trying to do a game stack, but it wouldn't like if I ended up with Davis, Siakam, and Van Vliet, I'd be okay with it. But I don't think the way my lineups are coming out right now, I'll get there. We just did get an ownership update. Porter Jr. is approaching 70%. I'm still gonna. I'm on DK. I'm still gonna go with 35. I feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, I think having a good chunk of MPJ seems great for the big money tournaments. Perhaps now it's time to get away a little bit here. Look, it'll suck if he puts up 40 points, but find your value elsewhere. We've talked about some of these guys. I mean, you don't necessarily need to go to a direct pivot of a Bol or even Jeremy Grant, but take some Clarkson value now. Clarkson's ownership is coming down.
Yeah. Now Porter is 3K. He's the minimum on DK.
Yeah,
I fully
he's
understand
not going to kill you.
this.
He's not going to kill you at that price.
Yeah.
So yeah. I for the max 20s, I don't mind just going with that 60, 70, whatever with Porter. For the shoot around for the big ones, I think that's where I'd want to get away. For my personal taste. Though a lot of sharp people, including Josh before, I know, have done shows with where he pointed out, the 3K guys, if they're going to get that run and they're a guy like Porter Jr. is productive, like they're really not going to kill you in terms of winning a tournament. You can get different in other spots. And I see that logic. For me though, for the big money stuff, I'd rather try to get away a little more. But definitely worth noting though that if you don't play Michael Porter Jr., you are going to be different from a lot of the field right away, even if you are playing some other chalky plays. So definitely keep that in mind.
Marc Gasol. I'm sorry, I am playing a little bit of skinny Marc Gasol. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but they're going to need him and Ibaka against the Lakers front court. We know that, regardless of who's playing center amongst Howard, JaVale, and Davis.
Yeah, and I think too, it's worth noting that Marc Gasol has historically had some success against Joel Embiid, and I think you could say that there are some similarities to Joel Embiid and Anthony Davis in terms of the offensive ability, and many people not being able to handle their size, but Gasol has historically been able to do that, and honestly, I think Gasol losing some of that mass might be a problem against Joel Embiid, who is bulking like Mac from It's Always Sunny. But I think that there is a thing with Gasol and Anthony Davis that right now he's probably the most equipped to handle Anthony Davis than he would be compared to him being a little stockier in some previous years. But maybe that gets him some more court time. I don't know but I do have some Gasol exposure too, like a dart toss or two out of my lineups, and that's the reason why. Let's see here. Got some questions in the chats. Let's start to burn through these. And guys, help us out and hit that like button because we are going to take your questions today to make sure we're doing everything because it's a Saturday show and we want you guys to feel adequately heard, especially on this slate. And I'm checking through to see the premium Slack first if anybody hit anything here. Fantasy Wiz in the premium Slack asking, would you guys group at most one with Grant and MPJ? I think that seems fair. I don't see the reason why you'd want to have both guys in your lineup. Grant to me is a direct pivot. MPJ though more of a 2 in terms of that lineup, but I just I think that if MPJ loses minutes, it's probably because Grant's going off. So I would be less inclined to play those two together. But EMac, do you have a strong feel for that? I don't think it's a must have, but it's not one that I wouldn't want to have a lot of Grant and MPJ together.
Yeah, I went with again max 2 of 3 with them and Millsap.
Yeah,
so
okay.
I'm okay with it, but again, I'm only gonna play. I think I'm up to 40% on MPJ, but that's it. So there will be lineups where I'm not getting them together just because Grant's not, or I mean Porter's not going to be across my lineups.
Okay, no, that makes sense.
I'm saying that backwards, but you guys get what I'm saying.
Let's see. Can I fade Monty Morris and still win? Keegster asks. I think you can. I mean, we talked about it up top. I do believe that Morris is going to be a solid play today. But we've thought that before, and he has, had some issues. I just feel like his game is one that I think should be ready to go here for the bubble, where he's just a great shot creator, does have some ability to find his own shot. That said, the projections that we have for him, they're not insane. Like I have him for just under 24 fantasy points. Awesemo has him for just over 25. So there are certainly ways to get away there, and there's more than enough value out there that you don't need him. If he's minimum price, like if he's Michael Porter Jr. price, I think this might be a whole separate thing where I would be like, just honestly, just lock in Morris and just deal with the consequences afterwards. I just don't see how they have anybody else who can even take minutes from him right now. Like I find it hard to believe that Morris, unless there's some injury or something weird we don't know about, find it hard to believe that Morris doesn't get to 30 to 35 minutes today. So to me, there's a degree of safety there that may not even be there with Michael Porter Jr., despite both guys getting the start. So you go another question from Keegster, and of course we're checking the premium Slack first, but I'm going to jump over the YouTube here. Just want to make sure our members are taken advantage of, or taking our members are taken advantage of. I want to make sure our members are taken care of. I hope they're never taken advantage of, unless that's what you're looking for at 3 a.m. at a bar. Though you shouldn't be going to bars now anyway. Be safe. How do you guys like J Rich as a pivot off of Clarkson? I think there are other pivots off of Clarkson. That said, Richardson kind of popping up a little projection wise for me. I don't love him, but I could see doing that at under 10% ownership. EMac Richardson for you, does he rate?
No, he's not making my lineups, it looks like.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really feel like he should make a ton of lineups for most people, but I get it. I think he is one way to get different. I just don't know that he has that big of a ceiling, and especially in a game where we have a mostly healthy Sixers full unit here. It's not like Simmons is out or Harris is out or even Al Horford's out. Like I just don't know that there's enough of a boost on him, and his price not striking me as fantastic. I think there are some other ways you can get different besides that spot. What Crowder starting? Oh, interesting. So the Heat lineup came out.
Really?
Yeah, it is Jay Crowder starting, and he's been sneaky in the past too. Actually, let me see what Crowder looks like.
If you want to play Crowder, he's at 4,700 on DK. You're gonna need to manually boost those projections real quick. Yeah. I don't think you're gonna get him unless you put in at least 25. You're gonna need to put in at least 22 to 25 DK points to get him in your lineups.
You know what? Honestly, I'm going to put Crowder in a lineup because I
think he's reasonable.
Yeah, he's starting, and we've seen him spike that upside before, and he's just a guy that people are going to forget. And, we talked about Clarkson kind of being lost in this mix too. I think Crowder very much going to get lost in the mix at a weird price point. Like, why would people pay for him instead of Michael Porter Jr., who's going to be substantially cheaper? But there's a lot more safety in Jay Crowder getting run today than there probably is Porter Jr. is going to have run. Like, I'm not going to try to say that he's going to suddenly get 5 minutes, but Crowder's going to be out there. He's willing to chuck. He's been shooting 6 threes per game on the year. So yeah, I don't mind some stabs at Crowder, and I'm actually going to put him in.
I'm comfortable I'm looking at some cheap guys. Comfortable with JJ Redick at 3,500 on DraftKings. I'm going to go over the field on him. I'm going to put him in about 15% of my lineups. He's 3,500. I feel more comfortable with him than some of these other guys. Reminder: there's a NASCAR show that's going to pop up right after we are off.
Yeah, NASCAR Phil and Jason Floyd doing a great job there. And honestly, NASCAR has been one of those sports too, not quite as profitable for me as MMA over the season here, but the quarantine season. But it does honestly very fun sport to play here. If you're already tilting your NBA lineups, just get in on some NASCAR because that's coming up tomorrow. And excuse me, those guys will prep you pretty well.
Yeah, and the good thing about the NASCAR show, they already have done they're not doing qualifying, so we already know where everybody's going to start. So listen to this now, listen to it tonight, listen to it first thing tomorrow morning. The race is at 3:00 tomorrow, but once this is in the can, nothing's going to change unless I don't even know if they're going to do the tech inspections or whatever. But even then, we'll already know all the information that you're going to need. So definitely pay attention to that one because I think NASCAR is going to be a little softer than normal this week.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially with the sports coming back and still pretty big tournaments for NASCAR though. And our guy Phil does a really good job breaking everything down for you guys, explaining the track history and the things that you should look for.
Does 50% Jokic feel too high?
Ooh,
Let's put that back down to 30 and go from there.
The thing is, like, realistically, he's going to be 35% owned. So if you like him, you kind of have to get to 50% to get a meaningful amount above the field. So I don't hate it. I didn't do it personally, but I don't hate it.
I want a meaningful amount. I'm going to 50, damn it. Whatever. There'll be late slates, Chris. I'll know how much I need to enter for the remaining 4 games, especially over there on SuperDraft.
Steven Leibovitz, one of our regulars, no groin pulls in NASCAR. Yeah, but there are wrecks. And ask anybody who's played Ryan Preece for the last 2 months. That boy loves to wreck a car and ruin a day. Let's see here. Milton and Butler or Lowry and Clarkson. And you know what, guys? We'll take some either ors today, too, if you want to throw them out there, because why not? We got 5 minutes left, and we love you guys on a Saturday morning. So hit that like button to return. We'll take some either ors. EMac, Milton and Butler or Lowry and Clarkson.
Lowry and Clarkson.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're getting from Shake Milton.
Shake's going to get the minutes projection. Not that great. Yeah, I agree. Lowry and Clarkson for me. Craig and Porter Jr. in the same lineup. I don't love it.
I'm
honestly.
playing 10% of Craig. I don't care, but I'd rather play JJ Redick than Craig if you can wiggle that around on DraftKings.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't know about Torrey Craig. I don't love him. I don't love him in a lineup where there is another guy coming in who's going to take more usage away, and he's not going to have the ball in his hands either. Not that he ever does. I honestly might take that minimum price stab and play Bull, and it's so weird to say a man's name twice in a row, but that is his name. Bull, and Michael Porter Jr. I might be more inclined to take that stab and get real weird with it and hope that we see Bull have that Trey Burke day where it's like, it doesn't make sense why this guy's suddenly going off, but we saw it in scrimmages. We knew that there was opportunity there. I might be more inclined to do that than Torrey Craig. I just don't see Torrey Craig being terribly productive.
All right, here we go. 50% Jokic, 50% George, 40 Anthony Davis, 40 Kyle Lowry, 40 Donovan Mitchell, 40 Fred VanVleet, 40 Clarkson, 40 Monte Morris, 40 Porter, 35 LeBron. Watch for that groin injury. 35 for Brogdon, and I do like Kuzma. I've got 33% there. So rolling the dice. Kawhi just 30.
That is way too much Kuzma, I would say, but.
I'm hoping to have some LeBron flexibility if we hear his groin snagging and yada yada yada. We'll see.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, smart move to plan, and something to keep in mind too. You can't really think about all the stuff, but put your late game players in the utility spots if you can, or the flex spots, because that's going to be very helpful for you guys if there are some weird injuries. That's what I try to do with Malcolm Brogdon as much as possible today, given how heavy I am on him. So that's the move. JaMychal Green, actually, anything on AD or Braun playing? I think the assumption is they play, but you know how it is with them. But I think there's no reason why they shouldn't be going. Nothing's flared up. TJ Warren or Brogdon, that is a slam dunk for Brogdon for me, but I do like both guys. EMac, do you have a lean?
Brogdon, but as I mentioned, if you set it up appropriately, you can pivot to Warren if something happens with Brogdon.
Yep. Warren and Fred VanVleet, EMac, or Kawhi and Michael Porter Jr. in a single entry GPP.
Fred VanVleet side, just because the popularity is going to be dramatically different.
Yeah, if you're getting different with the rest of that roster, I think you can go to Kawhi and MPJ. That's certainly the safer play. Play will not kill you. Whereas Warren and Fred VanVleet, maybe they get to just a little bit under 5x, or maybe they even get.
They could combine for 40 fantasy points. That's not off the table.
Yeah, so. But for a single entry, if you have more chalk in other spots, I think going to Warren and Fred VanVleet makes sense. But this is assuming you don't have a really weird lineup for the rest. If you do, then go to Kawhi and Michael Porter. Let's see, people asking Tyler Harrow. I don't see this being a Tyler Harrow day. I would be more inclined to go, well, Harrow's really cheap, so I get that. Also, honestly, Harrow's been spending quarantine. He's going to be sad. He's been hooking up with an Instagram model girl with a comically large butt. So I think he's just too crestfallen to have a good day. That's my check out more on Side Action, awesemo.com/side action to learn about the game outside the game and which guys are dating girls with big butts who will be very sad during quarantine. If they don't
He's got the Sir Mix-a-Lot to listen to as he cries himself to sleep.
All right, gentlemen, we are locked, or ladies and gentlemen. Of course, I shouldn't do that. I can't be exclusionary. Let's see. We got, you know what? Let's clear the airwaves. I was going to say, like, let's do a quick little ownership game, but we got to clear.
We got
the
NASCAR.
airwaves.
We got NASCAR.
Yeah, NASCAR coming up. Can't keep Jason Floyd and Phil waiting. So go check those guys out now. Again, pay attention to the news throughout the day, especially if you, like me, played a stupid amount of Malcolm Brogdon. Just watch the news throughout the day because these things can get weird, and you need to be paying attention.
Hit the like button.
Yes. Hit the like button and subscribe. Of course, we have so much content. We have MLB shows today, NASCAR shows, MMA shows. We have so much going on with all the sports. So everything's back. Watch all the content we have here and stay tuned for Jason Floyd and Phil Bennettson coming up next for the NASCAR on a separate feed. So check the YouTube channel page and we'll be back with you guys very soon. So good luck.